It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone, welcome to Sunday Streams. We are back. For those who don't remember, we did Sunday Streams long time ago, years ago, every Sunday night, funny enough. And we'd get guests from around the sports betting industry. I'd answer all your betting questions, discuss all sorts of, betting strategies, all that kind of stuff. Talk about the Trademate Sports software. If you go back, you can watch, maybe a little bit outdated now. It's been a while, but yeah, you can go back and have a look at some of the episodes we've done over the years. And yeah, it was just a good time on a Sunday night, European time or UK time, wherever you are, or very early Monday morning where I am. If you just give me one moment, I'm just trying to see if we are live in the places I wanted to be. I'm still getting up to scratch with everything. Yeah, no, definitely not live on Facebook. Okay, yeah, I think we're all good. And just making sure that people can hear me too, that would be great to know. Let's go into the you can hear me, right? Yep. I hope so. Right. I'm assuming people can hear me. If you can't, please let me know. G'day, Neil. Good to see you, mate. If anyone could just quickly let me know if you can hear me, that would be great. But I'm assuming we're all good to go. Otherwise, someone would have told me by now. All right. Sorry, guys. Very slow to get going. Yeah, perfect. All right. People are letting me know it's all good. All right, good stuff. I think we're live on Instagram for the first time in a while too, which is good. So hopefully some people can send through questions there. I'm not too sure. I'm not getting them on my thing here, but I'll try and keep an eye on them too. Cool. First question's already come through, but today we will, just answer any of your questions. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so I can answer any of your questions that you've got. And then also, I thought just general conversation about some of the podcasts I've done lately. I think there's some, for anyone that's listened, I think there's some good talking points there that my recent episodes with Nicky, Bobby, and also Jake Humphreys. I think two unique guests that that I've had on lately. So I think there are some good discussion points there in relation to how to go about your sports betting, because they were both they both come from angles that I would say are, well, maybe not Nicky, Bobby, but at least Jake bets in a way that's, I would say, reasonably unique in the industry compared to other originators. All right, so first question from, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name. US presidential election, Trump. Which do you think? Mate, I have got absolutely no idea. I'm sorry, I'm not clued into political betting at all. I will say though that most of the sharp people I've noticed are on Kamala Harris, but I believe, I don't know what the odds are now. I from what I saw yesterday, it seemed like Kamala Harris was she was steaming in. So I think that in terms of giving you guys a bet there, I am assuming that the numbers are well and truly gone. I think the voting's already started. If I'm not wrong either. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can early vote in the US now too. So the election's kind of already started. So I'm sure there's information filtering through now. So anything that I say would be outdated pretty quickly, I would assume. But anyway, yeah, mate, I've got no idea. I would listen to. There's plenty of good guys out there to listen to podcast wise. Probably most of the podcasts that I've listened to, or that I've followed over the years, have had someone on that's clued into political betting. So there's probably some good ones there. You had Neil Shah at Trade on Sports. He had Paul Kay on. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. He had him on a couple of weeks ago. I listened to Smart Betting Club. They had a guy called, can't remember his last, Zeus. That was a good listen. And what else? That's all I've really seen. I think maybe what's that podcast called with Jeff Maher and Rufus? I forget what they're called. Beat the Process. That's it. Yep. Bet the Process. They've talked about it, I think, too. But I haven't listened to that one. There's lots of good stuff out there, betting-wise, you can listen to. Yeah. So that's a few options for you guys. But yeah, as we keep going, please send through your questions, and I will get to them throughout the show. It seems like, yeah, if you've got any, we've got some people on Instagram, but it's not coming up on my thing here that migrates everything together. So if you've got any questions on Instagram, please send through, and I will try and get to them. But yeah, I thought the one of the things we could talk about today, as I mentioned before, was just recapping some of the guests that I've had on the podcast. So we can start with Jake Humphreys. I'm sorry if no one's actually listened to these episodes, but I'm sure either way, there's some good stuff to talk about here, or at least engage with. So for those who don't know, Jake was I guess call him whatever, but a qualitative sports bettor. I guess you could just call him a professional sports bettor, originator, handicapper. But instead of, I guess, the general consensus is that whenever you're originating a sport, you are modeling, or maybe you're maybe not originating, but some people will steam chase if they're a pro sports bettor. Sorry, just a few issues here. They're all good now. There's not really much of there's not much talk about people who, eyeball the market, or people that use game analysis, match analysis, watching tape, watching games, all that kind of stuff. There's not much of a mention that when you say you're a pro sports bettor, everyone kind of just imagines that you're you're modeling. So I think it's interesting, myself, that's how I've originated UFC, which a little bit different to most sports, but it was interesting to hear someone who follows bigger sports, like team sports like rugby and also tennis, and uses this qualitative approach to their betting. And I don't know, maybe I'm quite biased because I do not model myself, and I use the exact same process with handicapping the UFC. But I think it's, in a world full of, or a betting world full of data, and also, there's just so much more data and, stats out there nowadays. It's harder to get an edge that way. So I think that in any case where you can be unique and you can change things up and, look at things from a different angle, like there's just no way that models, can encompass everything within a sport. yes, they can give you like a tremendous baseline and, give you an edge in betting if you've got a very good model and you're very powerful, big syndicate. But when when you're trying to compete against these big syndicates, Tony Bloom, Star Lizard, all these massive syndicates who have got, geniuses working for them, it's very hard to beat them in general, but it's hard to beat them at their own game. So I think what guys like Jake do in terms of qualitative handicapping obviously has its own downfalls, pitfalls that you can fall into. But I think it's all for people that are, not that I'm saying anyone has, but anyone that thinks that it's not a valid way to handicap sports, I think they're hugely wrong. Got some questions come through here. Are you interested in the Japanese market? I'm familiar with it. I can provide you with good information and I would like to work for your company. Wow. Well, I'm not sure what jobs are going at Trademate Sports at the moment, mate, but and I'm not very clued into the Japanese market at all. Sorry, mate, but yeah, if you're interested in a job at Trademate Sports, I'm definitely not the person to talk to. I'm sure you can jump on the website and there's a contact for Marius, or Marius is probably the best person to get a hold of. In terms of your question here, Neil says, "What are your thoughts on the Premier League win market?" Well, how about we get it up? One sec. What if we go to Odds Checker? One moment. Let's have a look. Very interesting weekend, wasn't it? All the big dogs, or not all the big dogs, but two of the big dogs losing. One sec. All right, here we go. There we go. All right, can we see that? Yeah. Oh, wow, that's horrible to look at. That's not fun. Well, I guess this is a bit better then. All right, so you've got Man City still favourites. This will help me out a bit here. There we go. All right, Man City still favourites at 262. That's best price. I've got no idea where it is because I don't know what's going on with Oh, that's what I've done wrong. All right, there we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, so Man City favourites, about 2.5 everywhere. And then you've got Liverpool second favourites, 3 in a few places. And then the great Arsenal, you can get 5 in a few places there. Look, people are going to say I'm biased, and fair enough. But if I had the capital, or at least if I had the futures markets are hard to get involved with because, especially something like the Premier League, it's November now. The Premier League's not going to be finished till normally the end of May, right? So we're talking 6 months, more than 6 months that you're going to have your money tied up somewhere. And if you have a bankroll, like there's almost no unless you've got a very big bankroll and you've always got spare money, money just hanging around not being used. Like, I just think futures betting is not for you because there's always going to be, like, you've got more chance of, let's just say you've got, $1,000 sitting there in your bank account that you never use, or at least you could use for betting. That $1,000, if you went and stuck that on Arsenal and they win, great. But if you're betting with that $1,000 over the space of 6 months, over and over, turning it over, you can make more than that money that you would make just betting on Arsenal, and that's only if they win. So, yeah, John Nimmo's. I'll get to these questions that I've skipped over, but yeah, John Nimmo's got a good point here. It says no value in placing the bet when waiting for the EPL to result at those odds. Exactly. Like for me, obviously, I do think there's value in Arsenal if you can get them at 4 or above, but it's just not the smartest thing to do, futures betting this far out. Like, unless you, like I said, unless you have a huge bankroll and you never are able to use it all, then go for your life. Like, having money sitting around in a sports book for 6 months, it's probably not much of an issue for you. But at least for myself, I want to be I want to have all my money available to me so that I can turn it over constantly and take smaller, probably smaller value bets and just do that over the space of 6 months rather than put a lot of that money onto one bet that will take 6 months and might lose. At least these odds suggest will most likely lose. So, yeah, not for me at all. But in terms of people that are into the futures markets, I would say that it is, in terms of the Premier League market here, I would say that, as I said, I'm tremendously biased probably, but Manchester City, I think at around 250 are not backable at all, considering how they've performed ever since Rodri has been injured. They're even though they've got a few results here and there, their underlying metrics have been much, they've worsened. I don't see how you could back them, even though I think they're still, I don't know how many points off the pace off Liverpool. Liverpool, I mean, it's kind of hard to get a gauge on them a little bit just because they had such an easy start to the season. I think before they played Arsenal and Chelsea, I think they had like the second easiest run of games. So they were obviously going to accumulate some decent points there. And then there's also the unknown of Slot. Like Slot could be the next big thing. He could be better than Klopp, but he could also be an average manager. We really have no idea. We need to keep building that sample size of games up. But either way, even if Slot is let's just say Slot is on par with Klopp as a manager, which is an unbelievably massive claim to make. Look at how Liverpool have been going the last couple of years. They haven't been at the level of Manchester City and Arsenal, and I don't see anything like. I don't see the same like defensive prowess, I guess, in their squad that I do with like a City and an Arsenal. So I think personally, Liverpool will get found out over a sum of 38. Over a sample, of 38 games. And then you look at Arsenal, who I would say were horrendous yesterday against Newcastle and were poor before they got the red card against Bournemouth too. They're 7 points off the pace, and they have had just about every bit of bad variance go against them so far. They've had horrendous injury luck so far, missing Odegaard for basically the whole season. They have missed, other, like their back line at the moment. Fullback's missing all the time. Saka's missed games. What else am I missing? The midfield is, all over the place at the moment, just with that taking out Odegaard. And they've had 3 red cards, and they're realistically, I think Arsenal are actually in a decent place considering all the things that have gone against them early in the season. And I think once we, after the international break, and everyone should be fit by then, hopefully, and then you go into that, hectic Christmas period, and you also add on top of that that it's only 10 games into the season. And I think there was a stat I saw yesterday that after 20 games last year, Arsenal were 5 points off the pace, something like that. And they ended up being in the position to win the league with whatever it was, 5 games left, and then they lost to Villa. So things can turn around very quickly. And that last season, we were talking about a City team, a fit City team, and the Liverpool team that had Klopp. So, I think Arsenal are still. I would have them. I know it's going to sound crazy, but I would have them very close. I would have City, Liverpool, and Arsenal right now at very, very, very similar prices. I'd almost have, some of these other teams, maybe like a Chelsea. I can't remember where they are on the ladder right now. I'd have to have a look. But Chelsea really could be anything under this new manager. They could. I haven't watched much of them, but they could be anything, and they like to spend. They could spend big in January. Like I'd be more looking at a team like that, even though I don't think Chelsea are going to win. But I'd be more looking into teams like maybe that at these prices too, because Chelsea are just a very much, we play 10 games, so you get a decent idea, but they are an unknown quantity in a way because we don't know too much about this, how they'll go under this manager. And if I'm not mistaken, they still play in Europe, don't they, in Chelsea? I think they're in one of the shit ones. Oh, yeah, they're in the Conference League. Classic. Yeah, so they don't have that rest. But I guess in the conference games, I assume they're playing like their other 30 players that they have. Oh, they just drew with United. Anyway. All right, so I think that's... If it was me right now and you want to get involved in the Premier League market, I'd be all over Arsenal at these prices. Like, I want to go and back them right now. But just for me, I don't want to have my money tied up for that long. All right, so as I've been talking, a lot of people have been giving their thoughts. Yeah. Oh, we've already gone through that one. John Nimmo says, yeah, exactly. Same thoughts, Alex. Even AFL futures at higher odds, expected value at low or high odds makes similar circumstances waiting so long, like your reasoning. Yeah, I think the better future markets to get involved in, or it's better to get involved later in the season. And also, if you've got, sometimes I'm trying to think of a good example. This is maybe not relevant to many people here, but something like a 2020 tournament or something, those go for like a month or two, don't they, normally? So something like that is not so bad. International tournaments like Euros, all that kind of stuff, outrights, I reckon way more, way better to get involved in those. But even like NFL, I think, how long does their season go for? Like five-ish months, maybe? It's a little bit better, isn't it? So, but these ones, like the EPL is just about the worst one you can get involved in. Like season starts in August. It goes for 9 months. Like ludicrous for people to be, in my opinion, unless you've got unlimited money, stupid to get involved. I'll go back to your other comment. Shane, only decent future I've got is Leeds to win the EFL Championship at 3-1, but only tying up 150 euros over 38 games. Yeah, but Shane, if your bankroll is $1,000, then I would say that was a bad call. I don't know what your bankroll is, mate, but or your bankroll is $10,000. That's off the top of my head, that's 1.5% of your bankroll. Even that's a bit iffy. Like you could be using that for other stuff. So I think it's all just dependent on your bankroll size. But then it's like, let's say Shane's bankroll is $10,000 and he's put 150 on Leeds to win the championship. That's 1.5% of his bank. Like, is it worth it? I mean, maybe it's just for a bit of fun, mate. But I think these are just all great conversations to have. John Nimmo says maybe a small side bet on Bournemouth then. They beat City and then the other week versus Arsenal. I know. They're not a bad team. Like I said, but even before Arsenal got a red card, the first 30 minutes, Bournemouth were, Arsenal were really struggling to play through them. So they're obviously a decent side. All right, we'll come back to this one, Shane. I just want to get through this. Jokes aside from John Nimmo, he says, I think all major league futures markets are close to unbettable right now due to the fact of high number of games due to Champions League change of format. Yeah. And look, you could go bet on Arsenal right now. Tomorrow, Saka does his ACL. Or, could happen to all the other teams, obviously, too, but bloody hell, like if Saka did his ACL tomorrow, that bet is looking horrendous. So these are all just it's an interesting market, the futures market. It is highly beatable, but at the same time, you could it's an interesting one to talk about. Okay, Sergey, I have no idea if that's how you pronounce your name. Sergey, maybe. If the line is still the same as the opening line right before kickoff, would you generally avoid the bet? Well, if we were talking about a very low league, then maybe, because then I'm thinking, well, potentially no one has bet this line at all, and it's just stayed the same the whole time because of that, the fact that no one's bet it because it's such a small league. But if it was a Premier League game, Arsenal opened at 1.8 and they closed at 1.8, I would be, pretty rare that this would happen, but I wouldn't avoid it because it depends where you want to bet this. So if you're saying, Pinnacle's always going to be moving. So, for example, generally the sharpest book. So if Pinnacle are opening at 1.8, moving around and staying at 1.8, that's the line. It really doesn't matter if it opens at something and ends at the exact same. There's always going to be movement in between that. So people are trying to figure out what's the efficient price. And if that's what the price ends up as, then that's the efficient price. It really doesn't doesn't matter what happens in between. It's the closing price that matters. So the only reason I would avoid the bet is maybe if, I guess probably the thing I should have stated at first is what line are we talking about here? Are we talking about the Pinnacle line or the soft book line? So if we're talking about Pinnacle and it opens at 1.8 and stays at 1.8, then there's probably been in a smaller league, a smaller sport, then the line probably just hasn't been touched at all. But if you want to, and it's not efficient, but if the line opens at 1.8 at Bet365, stays at 1.8, and Pinnacle's dropped down to 1.7 or something like that, whatever, then it's probably a good bet to take. I hope that answers your question, mate. Good to see you too, Shano. I think I've already answered one of your questions. He says, I think the safest bet on the election is to take either candidate to have 80 million votes or more, being the level of divided and support on both sides. Yeah, mate, I've got absolutely no idea. I'm sorry, Shano. I've got no feedback on that one. As I said before, I'm very clued out of the US election betting. Shane also says dealing with the election betting, there's a lot of noise out there. You've really got to, like, if you're following people for bets, like, it's a dangerous world, I think, for that, because there's just so many things that you got to take into consideration there. Like, politics is an emotional game, and if you're following someone for their bets, or you're following people on Twitter for their feedback, like, bloody hell, you've got to be careful out there. Anyway, we move on. Dealing with bad beats and variance. Losing out by 0.5 on total markets still gives me the mental needle and can cause bad bets, chase, even doing this for years now. How do you cope with such losses? Oh, I mean, it's the ultimate question, isn't it, Shano? I think you've just got to... I guess you just learn over time to deal with this stuff. I think for me, it's not singular losses and a week of losses that hurt or get me frustrated. It's more so the if it goes on for a really long time and you're like, how is this mathematically possible? You can run it through variance simulations and you're like, this was a 5% chance of happening, basically, at least in my eyes. And it's happened to me, but 5% chance is a 5% chance. 20, something that's 20 in odds, or 20 to 1 happens all the time, So yeah, it's tough. And I've found that I can deal with things better if I know what I'm doing is good. And that's a really simple, stupid way to put it. But my periods of losses have hurt me more emotionally when I was in some way unsure that what I was doing was profitable in the long run. All you can do is focus on your process, and the outcome is really out of your hands. Random shit can happen. You can bet on Arsenal at 1.8. They close at 1.6. I know, extreme example. And Saka gets injured in the first minute. You've placed a bloody good bet. You just got a little bit unlucky. And now that bet is definitely, at that time, expected value-wise, it's definitely not a 1.8 kind of, 1.6 kind of price. So, yeah, it's... I've gone on terrible runs of losses, especially this year. I've had some really long periods of losses, and I've never had the issue of chasing. I'm not, trying to big myself up or anything like that. I've never had that issue, luckily. I've had, maybe I've had situations where I've placed bad bets because been so frustrated. But you've just got to, you just got to look at things like closing lines. If you're beating closing lines in liquid markets, then you're probably doing the right thing. For me, I look at when I'm originating the UFC and I'm going on bad stretches, I look at, okay, I placed this bet because of this. Did that happen, and did my percentage outcome kind of play out? Was I looking at the right stuff? Was I thinking the right things? Why was I so different from the market? And even if I lose a bet and I still believe that I was seeing the right things and luck didn't go my way on that day, then we just keep ticking on. I think the time when it gets really frustrating is when you're going through a bad stretch and you find, you're placing good bets and it's shit like, in my case, betting on the UFC, horrendous score, like judges just getting it very wrong, referee or the refs not stopping fights when they should be stopped. I don't know. Your fighter slips over, and when they're winning, they're about to win. It's just shit like that. I'm trying to think. over the years. I told a good bad beat story on the Halloween special I did with Neil the other day. So yeah, it's just stuff like that. That's when it really hurts you. But normally I'm able to keep it pretty level-headed, and it just takes years and years and years of doing this but even now, still internally you feel like shit sometimes. So yeah, mate. Yeah, good. So Shane just said, many thanks for answering my questions. The bad beats were occurring in play more for me and taking value prices and losing at the final second on evens, 5 to 6 chances. Perhaps in play is harder. Yeah, well, in plays, you just got to make up your mind so quickly, don't you? Yeah, but generally, if you're betting in play and you bet something at 2.0 and then a couple minutes later or seconds later it's dropped down, like you've probably seen the right things and you placed a good bet at that time, you've done your best, and you've just got to carry on. But yeah, losing in the final seconds is very annoying, but it is kind of a part of it. You know what I mean? I think bad beats should only be classified when it's like I'm trying to think in football, like a horrendous VAR decision or something like that. Like, I would say that's a bad beat. Obviously, it's in the stratosphere of outcomes that can happen in a football game. Like bad VAR calls can happen, but there have been some bad ones that you can say that's a bad beat. Like the one last weekend, the United penalty. It was bizarre. I mean, I love seeing United lose, but my God, what on earth was that? I mean, as an Arsenal fan, there's been some very dubious red card calls that don't seem to happen for any other team in the league. If I was betting on Arsenal then, I would have been like, my God, that is a bad beat. Yeah, stuff like that. All right, John Nimmo has a question here. What sports leagues are currently focusing on right now? How do you factor in bookies restricting your bet sizes last minute with your bankroll management? Sports leagues I'm focusing on right now are mostly just the UFC or MMA. And then I'll bet a bit of golf here and there still. And then currently been getting bets from, or at least moving for some people, on some American sports like NBA, NFL. Trying to think what else has been going on. Tiny bit of tennis here and there. Lots of things, but I would say mostly UFC and golf. And then the other question was, how do you factor in bookies restricting your bet sizes last minute with your bankroll management? Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends how much last minute betting you're doing. I don't do too much last minute betting, like betting, 30 minutes before a game. So that doesn't affect me too much in the sense that, normally UFC, sometimes I'll place like one bet or two bets like hours before the card. Most of my bets are done a day or two before. So yeah, I've got time then to, find other bookmakers that I can bet with. So, but I mean, that's a good question, John, for someone, if someone's, betting very close to kickoff. Yeah, if you're getting uneven stake sizes just because you're unable to bet the full amount because someone's restricted you just seconds before, you've just got to roll with it, mate. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question completely there, mate. So let me know if I've missed the boat on that one. All right, looks like I'm up to date on these questions. I'll see if there's any come through on Instagram. Doesn't seem like it. But yeah, keep sending through your questions, guys. But yeah, as I was talking about before with the the Jake Humphreys, but I think that's all I really had to say about eyeballing sports. I think it's an interesting way to look at things, and highly recommend it, especially the lower the league. The other thing that Jake talked about was, I thought super interesting, was he uses Trademate Sports, but he doesn't really use it for betting. He more so uses it as a tracker. And I think that's super interesting, because people would probably think like, wow, that's a lot of money to pay for a tracker, which I think is a very fair statement. But like, if I'm a big syndicate, let's just say, or I've got a huge bankroll, like, and I'm betting big markets, or like markets that Trademate has access to in their tracker, like fair income. Like, look at the tracker here. Like, if like I said, if I've got lots of money and I'm betting these bigger leagues, then like I can't imagine there's any better tool out there to track your bets with. Like, it's just, I know it's going to sound like I'm just absolutely blowing smoke up Trademate's ass because I work for them, but like, there truly is no better tracker out there in my eye. Like, it gives you everything you want. What the edge was at the time, the closing edge, the stake, I mean, these are basic stuff, but like, just the way that the closing edge is calculated, like, there's in my eyes, there's no better tracker out there that I've ever used that comes close to this. And then you can go into what the odds were at the time. Maybe this is probably quite outdated now, because it's about however many years ago, but it's it's amazing. And then the best part is that then you can go into the analytics page, and then you can get even more stats, and then you can start filtering. And it's like, I know that I am here as a worker of Trademate, but there is no better, at least, I mean, maybe people can send some suggestions through better trackers out there, but I haven't seen any. And I know maybe you have to pay, maybe there are good ones out there too, but you'd have to pay, pay decent prices. But it's, as I said, Jake uses it for a tool, and I think it's I mean, if you've got the money, like, what a great tracker to use for your bets. You'd never have any question that couldn't be answered. So that was another great thing he talked about. I thought was super interesting. Oh, here he is. Big Nilo's here. Any trolls so far? No, mate. Sadly not. Arson Vella. Thanks, mate. I'll take that. Shano, he says, something I found quite lucrative is total runs arbing on cricket games via Betfair Exchange. Nice, mate. You can bet under and over as the wickets fall, creating middle run spread. Good stuff, mate. Shouldn't have told all the people on here. Now your edge is going to go, mate. Everyone's going to start doing it. Mad for it too says, been following MK Dons since the start of the season in League 2. As I backed them top 7 finish, they're only 1 point off 7th after a shaky start, dominating every game stats wise, and still 5-6 with 365 and PP. There you go, mad for it. There's mad for it's big tip, MK Dons. But still a long way out from the end of the season, and a lot of like a 5 to 6 price. I'd assume people would be betting a significant amount of their bankroll on a price like that, and it's a lot to have tied up for a long time. So yeah, anyone that wants to get involved in the futures debate, then you can go back and hear what I had to say about it before. But yeah, back to what I was saying with the tool. I mean, everyone knows, most people in here probably know what the Trademate tool looks like, but like there's just, as I said, I don't think there would be any better tool out there to track your bets than Trademate. I think that's going back to actually what Shane said before about bad beats. I think you're going to get more frustrated when you don't know why you're losing. But if you've got a tracker like this, or whatever tracker you're using, if you've got the ability to go back and see why you're losing or where you're going wrong, like that's where I've had most of my frustrations, is not knowing the unknown. Like, what have I done wrong? What can I do to improve? What am I missing? What strategy is losing me money? What's winning me money? Trackers just give you such clarity in that sense, and I don't think there's anything better out there than Trademate. But yeah, but obviously the big point here is that I'm assuming most people that listen to this can't afford to just use Trademate as a tracker. Like, it's not a cheap product. Neil says, definitely agree. Key thing for me is just how simple and intuitive Trademate is to use, and scraping closing lines manually is very time consuming. Yeah, exactly. 100%. And that's why guys like Jake use it. In my opinion, the key thing is people draw conclusions from far too small a sample, and you do need to build up a big history to get meaningful analysis. Yeah. And that's what, that podcast hasn't come out yet. Me and Neil did a podcast the other day. I was about to spoil all the fun, but me and Neil talk about this on a podcast that's going to come out in less than 24 hours. So in terms of his betting on the Euros, like, I've probably done this many a times before, but I will do it again. I'll give everyone a link right now to a really good website called Sports Betting Calcs. I'll put it in the YouTube comments right now. And I think that this is just one of the greatest things you can do for your sports betting. And I'll even run a few examples right now. I just need to share my screen. Oh, God. All right. I assume everyone can see that. Yeah. So if you're frustrated about recent results, or your overall results on something, use this. It might give you a bit more perspective. So let's just say that you think you're very good at sports betting, which you've got a 5% edge in something. You've only placed 100 bets, which in a lot of cases people will think that's a big sample. I don't know, a fixed bet size of $10,000. So 1% of that would be $100. Yeah, okay. Let's just say you're betting roughly 2% of your bankroll every time you bet. You're betting average odds of, let's do that. There you go. 2% on 2.0, keeping things very simple. Simulate that. So you've only placed 100 bets on 2.0 odds, and you've got a 5% edge. Chances of loss at the end are simulate this a few times, 27%. There's a 27% chance of loss at the end. Now people say, oh, well, it's all good. I've got a 73% chance of winning. 27% chance is nothing to be laughed at. And that's if you've got a 5% edge. Like 5% edge is very, very good. And a lot of people won't have a 5% edge in anything. You could even let's just say you're a bloody genius. You've got a 10% edge and you've done 200 bets. Very, very small chance of loss at the end, but still possible. And I'm trying to, so average ending bankrolls 13,000. So, oh God, I can't do those maths, but I think this just gives everyone such a good idea of how things can pan out. Most people aren't going to have a 10% edge, so I think 5% is a good example. But like 5% edge, 200 bets, there's a 21% chance of loss at the end. Like people wouldn't fathom that they think they have a good edge, a 5% edge in something, and they do 200 bets. Like 200 bets can take a long time. Maybe not using a tool like Trademate, but if you're just originating something, and they're still losing after all that, they're probably going to think they've done something wrong. So it just shows how how crazy variance can be. Mad for It says, I've a friend who recommends the Bookie Basher Till. Have you heard of it? He says it's pretty good to get EV bets, but it's 150 whatever a month, which is steepish. Bookie Basher Tool. I have used it in the past for horse racing when Cheltenham's been on. Very good, for sure. But accounts were lasting. Accounts that I'd already had for a while, not fresh new accounts. Accounts were gone very quickly, like days after just a couple of days of using it. But maybe that's worth it if you've got access to lots of accounts. Maybe it's worth it. But from what I believe, they're good guys that are behind the Bookie Basher tool. So I'm not turning anyone off. I haven't used it that much, but as I said, the horse racing tool very good. I think they're each way kind of betting on the horse racing tool, very good. But a big ROI equals very quick limits. Partly answered my bankroll questions, but all good, can get fairly complicated. Appreciate it. The big fella's back. Highly recommend. Oh, here we go. Neil is recommending. What do you actually use it for, Neil? That would be interesting if you want to share. What you use the Bookie Basher tool for, because I know that they've got lots of, they've got the horse racing stuff. They've got golf. They've got lots of things, I believe, like coupon kind of stuff, which is useless unless you're in the UK. Trying to think of what else they have. I'd have to look up, but yeah, Neil, if you feel comfortable, mate, share what else you've used it for. Here he is. Main things he uses it for is for horse racing, golf, combined with his own models, but also exploring all the other stuff. There's a ton of stuff I barely touch, but lots of people have success with. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Thanks for that, Neil. Yeah. There we go. Big Neil. That's all the info. All right, we can start to wrap this up soon. If people want to send through their last questions or whatever they want to chat about. Shane says, "Do you know, is the money seeded in Betfair Australia then pulled into the?" Oh, mate, I'm not the man to ask about exchanges. I rarely use them. I'm sorry, mate. I only no, I don't even want to say what I do, but yeah, I don't. I don't really use the exchanges. Very rarely, maybe like 1 or 2 bets a year. Something like if I'm really wanting to bet like a futures market, that's the only time I really get involved with Betfair or yeah, I used to do a decent bit of golf on there, but not really anymore. So yeah, sorry, mate. I don't really know much about the exchange market. But I would assume that if I'm looking to lay something in Australia, that it can be taken on in the UK by someone else. Like, I don't know. I guess that's kind of betting between borders, betting over borders, but I don't know. I've got no idea. And then the other podcast I wanted to talk about was the one with Nicky Bobby, which only came out a week ago, 6 days ago. Thoughts about moving. It's a good question. The whole moving debate, whether you should move for people. I think Neil and I have done a podcast on this before, and I think I was quite against moving for other syndicates, but it's all about where your strengths lie. Like, are your strengths in handicapping a sport, originating a sport, or are they getting accounts and being very good at getting new accounts? And if you're very good at that, like if you're able to get new accounts on the daily or on the weekly, then moving for people is probably a really good way to go about your sports betting. But for someone like me who kind of hates that side of sports betting, who's I just don't really enjoy like the admin part of it, of like constantly figuring out whether I've got enough money in one account, or dealing with restrictions quickly, finding new people, etc., then maybe you'll find it quite an annoying, tedious, frustrating process. But I think people generally think if I want to become a professional sports bettor, I have to either get really good at originating something, or I have to get really good at steam chasing or something like that. And there's just so many more ways to be good at sports betting. Like, you don't have to get good at sports betting. You can get really good at getting accounts, really good at making relationships with people, getting to know people, building a network. Or you could, get really good at following tipsters, following software. It's like all these, there's so many different things you can do to become a professional sports bettor. So my overall thoughts about moving are, if you have the accounts, if you're committed to the process, then it's probably a really good thing for you. But there are going to be times where you do your head in, because it's not I think that's the most frustrating bit, is it's not your bets that you're getting sent. You're having a lot of trust in other people that the bets they're sending you are plus EV bets. And yeah, sure, if you work with someone for a really long time, most likely they're going to continue to be profitable for a long time. But God, you don't know what's going on in their life, do you? They could be going through a divorce that you don't know about, and suddenly their bets are a lot less quality than they used to be. They could have just had a kid, not spending as much time doing research, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's another thing that you got to take into consideration when you're moving. There's just so many things. Oh, it's tough. It's tough sports betting, isn't it? But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was we talked about on the stream, we talked about last week or the week before that with Jonas and Neil, we talked about the live betting with Trademate. And I wasn't able to show you guys what bookmakers that we use that are the most that are getting the most trades coming through. And I finally got that data late last week. Let me find what I found. I posted it on the Beat the Bookmakers Facebook group that we have. I will share that. One moment. So for anyone that's interested in getting into the live betting and they've got these books, then maybe it's good for you to have a crack. There we go. Okay, I don't know if that's very visible for people. Maybe that's a bit better. But yeah, so this is, I think, like the top 20 or 25 books that are getting the most trades through on the live feed. As you can see here, you've got, ROI, Edge, flat ROI, number of trades. And also these are filtered into recommended and non-recommended. So there's going to be, for example, you've got Unibet here. They've got non-recommended and also recommended here. So this should give people a general idea of, how many trades are coming through for each one and whether they're non-recommended or recommended leagues. And then make sure you have a look at the ROIs too. So even though SBO is getting a lot come through, pretty small ROI, which kind of makes sense because they're a bit more, sharper than your general soft book. And this is from May till September. So this is a sample of 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 5 months of sample, and not that many people are. I would assume not that many people are using Trademate Live. So, decent sample. As look at the one that Neil was using, Ladbrokes on the live stream. Like they've got a decent number of trades there, good ROI. So it's definitely something you can exploit for sure. I'd actually be interested to hear, because Neil, if you're still here, mate, he placed I think it was from the top of the head 20 or so trades when we were on that live stream. I'd be interested to hear, Neil, if you're still there, mate, how the account was affected after that. Like if it was, how much they love the live betting and how much they don't, because generally bookmakers like live bets more than pre-game bets in terms of being able to see if you're sharp or not. So yeah, if you're still there, mate, let us know. But yeah, if not, we can call it a day. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So Neil's saying Ladbrokes and clones are very solid and you get time to place them. Hills probably will be decent long term, but good luck getting them to pay you out. Account has been fine so far, but been putting lots of shite on it, and it's small stakes for testing. Yeah. I mean, I know you were only putting 10 quid on when we were on the live stream, but like, yeah, I think that like 10 quid, I've had accounts where I've been placing those kind of bets, a long time ago, and I've definitely had accounts banned placing smaller wages like that. So Yeah. All right, cool. I think unless anyone's got some last minute questions, I think we'll call that a day. As always, I don't know how often I'll be able to do these Sunday streams again, but maybe I'll try to get a few more guests on so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. But yeah, great to have everyone back and asking questions. Good to see some of the same faces, same names as we did a year or two ago. But yeah, good to catch up with everyone. If this is your first time on the channel, please subscribe, like, tell a friend, all the good stuff. And yeah, just look out for more and more content. As you've probably seen the last week or two, there's been much more content on the channel, and I'm planning to keep that up. So podcast with Neil coming out tomorrow, catching up with him on what he's been up to the last year or 18 months. Lots has happened for the big fella. So that was a really fun chat. Good to catch up with him. And then over the coming weeks or coming days too, we're going to have lots of other content, more guests coming on the podcast. So look out. As I mentioned on Twitter the other day, we got Anthony's coming back. Anthony Kaminskis is going to join me on the pod, hopefully sometime this week. So that will hopefully be out next week in 10 days or something. So yeah, good to be back, everyone, and I will catch you very soon.